Hey there, fight fans, and welcome to another MMA fighting video. The very anticipated fight between Jake Paul and Tommy Fury is over, and the Brit had his hands raised, earning a split decision victory over the YouTuber. Although Jake had his moments during the fight and landed some good shots on his own, Tommy proved to be the more technical boxer, landing almost twice as many shots as Jake did. This was the first time Jake Paul fought a real boxer, and he failed the test, raising many questions about his legitimacy as a fighter. Was Jake Paul finally exposed? Would this loss mean the end of his career as a boxer, or would he take this as a learning experience to become a better version of himself? This will probably be the end of Jake Paul's career in the sport, and we'll discuss and elaborate on why. Why was Tommy's style superior to Jake's? Although Jake Paul possesses an exciting fighting style that was efficient in all his previous bouts, the style of Fury was the kryptonite that finally solved the Jake Paul puzzle. We've seen from his previous fights that Jake has power. Many people don't take his skills and power seriously, judging by his persona outside the ring. Jake has a legit one-punch knockout power, and that's some of his best weapons whenever he steps in the ring. Jake possesses a solid straight and overhead right, and there's a lot of power behind it. He could knock out any of his opponents if thrown with precision at the right time. However, Jake has that beginner problem. His defense doesn't match his offense. When Jake is put under pressure, he crosses his feet and panics. When he panics, he puts his head down, takes his eyes off his opponent, and swings with a powerful overhand right. As Conor McGregor likes to say, he looks at the floor, closes his eyes, and throws an overhand right, hoping that it will land. He also tends to throw a long body jab and often looks for the one-punch knockout. However, the flaw here is that he always puts his right hand down and exposes his right side whenever he throws a long jab. Even though Tommy has won 4 of his 9 professional fights via knockout, none of them were a flashing KO that put his opponent to sleep with one punch. Tommy is a volume puncher. He likes to throw combinations, change from targeting the head to the body, throwing wild hooks, jabs, straights, and uppercuts, and sometimes he does that all in one combo attack. His arm's reach of 80 inches or 203 centimeters gives him the advantage over his opponents and allows him to throw long and powerful hooks while moving forward and keeping the distance as he does that. Tommy is very confident in his offense and often doesn't keep his guard up. When under attack, he tends to back up against the ropes, grabbing his opponent or throwing combinations on his own. Putting these two fighters with relatively distinctive boxing styles made this fight enjoyable, but Fury's style proved superior to Jake's, and we'll look at the fight and explain why. By the way, if you like the video so far, don't forget to press that like button. Now back to the video. A closer look at the fight. Fury entered the bout as the more aggressive fighter, throwing boxing combos while Jake kept his guard up. From the beginning, it was evident that Jake was looking for that one big overhand punch, and he managed to land once in the first round. Tommy landed some good hooks while Jake was targeting the body. Jake took control of the ring in the second round, pressuring Fury against the ropes, but the Brit threw some good counter strikes while defending himself. Tommy used his jab a lot, and each time he threw it, Jake tried to duck under and counter it with a massive overhand right. He caught Tommy like that, but the Brit didn't flinch. At the same time, Fury landed a few good jabs that clearly bothered Jake. The problem child had a good moment in the third round when he landed a big jab that got Fury's attention. This proves how much power Jake possesses in his hands. It was only a jab, yet the Brit was retreating against the ropes. The American kept his momentum, landing a few good hooks and an overhand right, and the Brit retaliated with great jabs on his own. At the end of the third round, Radio Raheem ringside interviewed Jake's older brother, Logan Paul, who insulted the Fury family and provoked Tommy by indicating he was tired. However, the reality was very different. To neutralize Jake's confidence earned in the third round, Tommy entered the fourth round aggressively, throwing beautiful combos, but most landed in Jake's guard. However, the Brit landed a clean, straight right punch that clearly got Jake's attention. That made Tommy a bit overconfident, taking his guard down and challenging Jake to a brawl, to which the American responded with a beautiful left hook that landed clean. Tommy kept punishing Jake with 1-2 combinations and was undoubtedly the better fighter in that round. In the fifth round, Jake threw another big overhand right, but the Brit was now ready for those and he retaliated with a good right hook. Then the problem child landed a huge left hook that staggered Tommy, but he returned the favor with a beautiful 1-2 combination. This round provided plenty of controversies as Paul was deducted a point for illegal strikes to the back of the head, while Fury only let off with a warning. By this point of the fight, Tommy Fury's boxing experience greatly impacted the fight since he remained the more composed and fresher fighter. In the next 2 rounds, the Brit made some adjustments and found success with his uppercuts every time Jake ducked under. Also, Tommy was the more composed fighter and very calculative in his shots, making Jake panic, desperately trying to land that huge overhand right that could change the whole fight. Although the American missed most of these attempts, he caught Tommy in the last round with a huge jab that knocked the Brit down. This was Jake's most significant moment in the fight, but it wasn't enough to win the contest. Tommy also had excellent momentum when he backed Jake against the ropes into a defensive mode. At the end of the fight, both fighters thought they did enough to win, but the victory belonged to Tommy Fury, and that leads to the question, why would this end Jake Paul's career as a boxer? This was the first time Jake Paul fought a legit boxer, and he was outclassed in every sense of the word. When it was all said and done, the statistics showed that Tommy landed 88 punches compared to Tommy's 49. Almost 50 of those were power strikes compared to Jake's 24. But one doesn't need to be a fight fan to determine who was the superior boxer in that bout. But before we analyze how inferior Jake was to Tommy Fury's boxing, let's look at Paul's previous opponents. In his first professional fight, he faced Ali Louis Al-Fakri, another YouTuber, and defeated him by TKO in the first round. He knocked out the former NBA player Nate Robinson in his second fight. Neither of them were a professional boxer and much less a high-caliber fighter. Jake Paul demonstrated his knockout power, but still, not many wanted to give him credit for what he's done because those opponents aren't real fighters. Speaking of a real fighter, his next bout against Ben Askren was a completely different story. Askren's striking is not his strongest asset, but from a competing point of view, we're talking about a former Olympian and a former MMA champion. As a surprise for many, Jake Paul knocked the MMA veteran out in the first round. His victory against Ben Askren opened many questions, whether this kid is for real. Next, he faced the former UFC champion Tyron Woodley, who, unlike Askren, has legit one-punch knockout power and a solid striking game. Even though the fight was close, Jake Paul managed to edge Woodley on the scorecards and get the split decision victory. In a rematch, he knocked Woodley out, but the former MMA fighter took that fight on short notice. His last victory was against the aged 47-year-old Anderson Silva, another MMA fighter without a boxing pedigree. Taking everything into consideration, Jake's previous victories were against former old UFC competitors and two opponents who were not real fighters. However, when the time came to prove himself against a real boxer, he failed and was extensively exposed as an inferior athlete. Jake kept looking for that big right overhand punch, but that repetitive move was so apparent that Tommy could always see it coming. You can't fight at the highest level and only rely on power. Tommy's volume punching style was always on point to counter Jake whenever he missed with a big punch. Fury was a way more technical fighter, and he could always throw different combos when moving forward, unlike Jake, who was desperately trying to land one big punch. When Jake Paul was pressured and forced against the ropes, he panicked and made reckless moves. Whenever Tommy went in an offensive, Jake put his head down, didn't look at his opponent, and threw an overhand hoping for the best. That's something that Tommy capitalized on a lot, especially in the later rounds when Jake went into panic mode with his head down and the Brit countered that with big uppercuts. Also, Tommy's powerful left hook came into play whenever Jake threw a long jab. Each time Jake did that, he extended his body while dropping his right hand, exposing the right side of his head. Tommy capitalized on that opportunity and threw some powerful left hooks that landed clean. Jake Paul looked like he didn't belong there, especially in the later rounds. He was visibly gassed and desperate, and he wasn't trying to change something in his tactic, but kept throwing and missing that big right overhand right. A good fighter would adjust mid-fight and try something different, but not Jake Paul. He kept failing in his desperate attempts to land one big shot. Tommy Fury schooled Jake Paul in boxing. People could see that the YouTuber lacked skills and knowledge and couldn't compete with elite boxers. Now, when he got exposed, he could consider ending his boxing career and dedicating more to the other aspects of his life. At the end of the day, he is a successful YouTuber with millions of followers that will always give him their love and support. And what do you guys think? Do you believe this loss will end Jake's career as a boxer? How do you think a rematch between these two would go? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you'd like to watch more content like this, please make sure to like and subscribe.